right, good afternoon everyone. We're getting into the next session. I'm very, very happy and proud to be here on stage on day one of the MadFest. So if you actually, let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm working for Mars Pet Nutrition. I joined Mars 1.5 years ago, heading up the media, digital marketing and content team at Mars Pet Nutrition. And my background over the last 20 years actually is around media, content and digital marketing. So with that, the next step for me is to look a little bit about briefly introducing you to Mars. So if you think about Mars, if I can say a few hands of you who think of chocolate when I say Mars? Yeah, a lot of hands. If I actually then say about pet care, who thinks about pet care? Some. So an interesting fact actually is that Mars consists out of 3 segments. So the segments are Mars snacking or chocolate, and the other segment is food and nutrition, as well as pet nutrition. And maybe a fun fact for you as well, the majority of our net sales is coming from pet nutrition, from pets. So it's actually quite interesting because most people think about chocolate, which is not the case. So therefore, actually the brands we're dealing with are making a significant amount of the net sales at Mars. Very quickly, what are the brands? You probably heard about Pedigree, Whiskas, and Cheeber. There are obviously many, many more of those brands, but none of the brands, when I talk about Mars Pet Nutrition, you actually can think of. But it's not about Mars, I just wanted to give you that context, what my background is. So, looking into the future battlegrounds of media, that's the topic of today, where I want to talk to you about. No doubt, and I think most of you are very much aware of the environment we're all in, especially the marketing and media environment we're all in, is evolving very, very rapidly. And therefore, there is a fight for future dollars and how we're gonna actually spend them and allocate them. So therefore, for me, I wanna give you the overview that advertisers are changing for attention. They are changing for relevance. They are changing actually for a better ROI. And on top of this, Gen Z is actually in there to understand where we need to place them. And finally, Gen Z attention span is actually really decreasing a lot. So it's lower than 3 seconds and it's decreasing even more. So how do we stand out with our brands to actually being relevant and authentic for our consumers, where we say at Mars Pet Nutrition, our pet parents, because that are our consumers. Today I will explore where the future of media dollars will fight for this attention, where we're gonna prepare for that, and how we at Mars are actually dealing with that. So let me frame this a little bit. What's important probably to understand when you talk about making decisions of budget allocations. There are 3 guiding principles for me. The first one, choose your battles. That's very, very important. You can't solve everything at once. So really be choiceful of what you want to do with your media investment. Then being focused. Once you have made the decision, be really focused on that and make sure that you have the right partners, that you have the right team, that you have the right talents on it. And be bold. If you're not bold, you're probably not seen. So it seems very, very simplistic, but it's important to really be bold to make sure that you cut through the clutter. I'm going to present you 6 battlefields. Probably most of you have heard about it. I'll give a bit of context of why I think how relevant they are and how we actually can succeed with them to implement them into the media mix and the media plans for our portfolio. First one, probably one of the biggest buzzwords right now, retail media. Retail media, everyone talks about retail media. The challenge, especially in CPG, is where is the responsibility sits in the organization, right? So it's a great opportunity for us when we think from a media perspective to go full funnel. Traditionally, a lot of CPG companies go from a very, very awareness, brand-led approach, where actually retail media works more on the lower funnel, for lower marketing funnel, where driving conversions. So you can have a full integrated brand experience with retail media. But when you think about retail media, obviously you think about those giants like Amazon, Walmart, or Tesco here in the UK from a grocery retailer perspective. That's true, but if you look about the entire scope of Europe, it's not about those retailers as well, right? So how do you balance the maturity of the different kinds of retailers? So on the far one hand side, you have Amazon, which is probably the most mature one from an online perspective. Also then Tesco from a grocery retailer did a lot of massive step ups in order to become very, very mature. So that's clear. But then you have a lot of other grocery retailers in the South or Eastern Europe area, which is way more challenging. And how are you actually going to address this? So important for me is, if you want to run retail media and want to allocate budget there, first of all, there's normally a very, very positive ROI, which is great because it gives you, the justification of really allocating money against retail media. The challenge I see, and the challenge we also have experienced over the last 2 years at Mars, is really where does the authority sit? You have a lot of customer negotiations with the trade, with the sales team, then you could have the strategy sitting in marketing, and how you actually make sure that this is working hand in hand together. This is a challenge, but for sure, retail media is already and will probably even more become an integral part of your media planning, of your media spend. So more media dollars will go into retail media for sure. Second one is AI-driven content and dynamic creatives. Again, this is a little bit the foundation of how we're going to work with those assets moving forward, right? It's critical for us to make sure that we have the right assets in place, that we have the right content, the right creative in place. The challenge is, big JBP partners like Meta, Google, or TikTok, they're driving those AI-generated ads moving forward. From a brand safety perspective, that can become a challenge sometimes because you talk to your content or you talk to your corporate affairs or legal teams where they have concerns actually if something is completely AI-generated, if it's still fitting the brand awareness and the brand safety requirements. So this is something I think we need to have in place. Again, the right partner, the right teams to order to execute this is critical, but you have this proper alignment in there. So for me, AI-driven content is the foundation of the future media battlegrounds we are facing, and it won't go away. So it's really, really critical that we integrate this properly, and as I said, we have the right partners in place. It's not easy to find the right agency partner to 100% do this and also work in the same way you think it's the best way for your brands. The third one is connected TV or CTV. CTV is big, and CTV is obviously very big in the UK from a European perspective already. A lot of spend goes there. It's a great opportunity to actually target your audience in a way better way. But you also need to balance this from an understanding of big mass reach, what you normally got and still get in certain markets from linear TV versus CTV. Personally, I think the biggest watch out we have with CTV that we don't treat CTV as just a channel. We should actually approach it more as a device. Because what we can also see, especially with the younger audiences, they use a connected TV just as a device, and they watch YouTube on it, right? They watch whatever they want on it. They want to Netflix on it. So it's not just pure TV as we know how TV was. It's really, really making a big change. So what we're approaching here is, as I said, a device strategy. How do we stay relevant and authentic with our brands on the actual device, regardless of the content which is being broadcasted on that device? So CTV is definitely something here to stay. The fourth one is, no surprise probably as well, is gaming. Gaming is the biggest entertainment category globally. So it's massive, as we all know. The challenge we, especially with CPG, are having is how do we make sure which elements of gaming, which genre of gaming we are picking. So you need to be choiceful for your brand. What's the purpose of your brand? What is actually the aim you want to drive through gaming, and what areas of gaming you're doing? We also need to convince people that when we talk gaming, it's not about talking a 17-year-old boy who is playing first-person shooter games anymore. Gaming is way broader. And at Mars, we have actually realized that the integration of influencers works really, really nicely. Just to give you an example of, it's very, very big within gaming that you actually watch other people game. And if you have like an influencer gaming at home, a lot of those gamers are actually pet parents, which is interesting insights from me as well. And they get a lot distracted by their cats or their dogs while they're playing. So it's actually quite nice. Another brand, a very playful brand in our portfolio is Dreamies, and it's quite nice where you actually can place your product within this natural environment of this influencer or gaming while he or she is gaming. So there is a right for gaming to get media spend, but you need to do it in the right way again. be bold of what you're doing, that way what I said there, be focused, but also don't try to be everywhere because that's not possible. And you be selective in terms of the brands you're choosing for gaming because it's such a vast or just such a big field you have. So therefore it's really important to be mindful which brands you are actually picking. The next one is a biggie, and probably also no surprise, is influencer. Influencer is, again, also not new, maybe a bit newer for CPG, but when you look into the fashion or the beauty industry, they are using influencers for many, many years already. And if we talk influencer, especially for pet care, we're not talking about Taylor Swift holding her cat in front of the camera and trying to work with Taylor Swift because we think this is influential. No, it's not, because actually we need to be authentic, we need to be reliable for our pet parents, for our consumers. So we're looking way more into the lower or mid-tier influencers, which have 20, 50 or 100K followers, which are important for us to actually drive our message. Again, if you want to have those, if you approach those new areas of media spend, the important part is you need to have a proper test and learn program in place, because you need to have the evidence back to the business that it's worth spending those dollars on this specific battlefield. We did this with influencers, and a great outcome is that 32% better performance of influencer content versus regular social media content. So that's big, and this is actually also where we see it gives us the right to spend more in influencers. And we have a great partner in place with an agency called BrainLabs who is supporting us big time. What we've done over the last 18 months is we came with a portfolio strategy on influencers. So what brands, what kind of influencers are actually the right connection or the right pairing? Because not every influencer is right for every brand. So being very selective there as well, and making sure that influencers is then, the influencer execution is integrated in the overall media plan thinking. So influencers, just to give you also that one, will probably made up to 15% of our overall media spend moving forward. So it's a significant part of our spend, and it probably will only increase over the years. So this is another big change we're seeing when it comes to how media spend is allocated and how media spend is executed. Last but not least, we're looking into audio and voice platforms. So everyone obviously is familiar with Spotify. I think the ambition for us in terms of future media spend is you want to have like a sonic identification of your brand. That's probably the ultimate goal you actually could get. As an example, we just created with our brand Whiskers, the Purrcast. So actually it's a nice combination of using podcasts linking to the purpose of the Whiskers brand and cats, and having this Purrcast in there. So it went super well. It has a great recognition. It was resonating really well with our pet parents moving forward, which is amazing. So looking into those 6 battlegrounds I have listed out here, they all have the right to be there. And again, coming back to my point of being focused, you don't need to have all 6 of them straight away. So what we did over the last 18 months is we very, very much focused on retail media, influencers, and gaming. We explored those areas, how relevant are they for us, and then have, through test and learn program, allocated budget against it, tested. And there are tests where you actually figure out, well, the money we invested there didn't play out that well, which is a great learning for us, because then actually you can invest the money where it makes more sense for your brands. So really being selective. Moving forward, we have established retail media and influencers as business as usual, not as a focus area anymore. We have installed what we call a think tank. So social search, for example, or Gen AI in general are the next ones we are going to exploring and trying to navigate through those areas where it might have the most relevance for our pet brands in our portfolio moving forward. So just to keep that in mind, don't try to tackle everything at once, be selective, and then stick to this, and really, really making sure that you're going to the bottom of it, that you understand it and understand how relevant it is for your brands. So you're asking, so what? When I talk this, what does it mean for your brands you're responsible for the brands you're working for? Fragmentation requires orchestration. Yes, it's very, very fragmented, and therefore you need to have the right orchestration in place. That I said, right internal team, right external partner. So really making sure that you also then be very, very decisive of what you do and what you not do. Rethink your media mix. As I said, obviously, I think hopefully 99.9% in this audience don't think 30-second TVC first anymore, but really be open to add new channels, new audiences, new platforms into your media mix. That's critical, and I think this is something what we did with a right test and learn in place to have the evidence to include more into your media mix. Budget for test and learn, that's also, please make sure you set budget aside, because only the right test and learn gives you the justification of adding more dollars against that. And then shift from channels to experiences. We as marketers or media experts think a lot about media channels, but the consumer or the pet parents, they don't think about channels. It's all about the experience they have with your brands, and therefore it doesn't matter if something shows up on TikTok, on TV, or they see something on out of home. The whole experience need to be authentic and need to be really resonating with them, so they actually, when they are in the supermarket in front of the shelf, they make the right purchase for your brands. So final thought and key takeaway for me is, follow the attention, not the trends. There are a lot of trends out there, and I said you need to be selective on that one, and also be mindful then what is relevant for your audience, because you have you need to service your audience, and therefore you need to really follow where the attention lies with your audience. Second, platforms rise and fall, right? So we have seen this, probably 15 years ago, everything was about Facebook. Now a lot of people say Facebook is only for Gen X plus people. So you also need to understand, what are the right platforms you need to play with. So really make sure where is your consumer attention you need to talk to. Adaptive and audience obsessed. Yes, audience is key, your key audience is key, and you need to be adapting because the media consumption behavior is changing, and therefore you really need to make sure that you have the right selection. And be fearless in experimentation. There were a lot of occasions actually over the last 18 months where I personally thought, well, is this really the right thing to do? And I think when you feel the most uncomfortable, it's the right thing to do, because then you're bold enough to actually really do this. All right. That's it. If there are any questions, feel free to actually approach me afterwards. If there's one thing, I think when you come out of this session is, pets make the world better for all of us. So thank you very much for your attention.